Hi, I'm Nandu Nankishore, and I joined ISB recently as a professor of practice. But at age 61 now, most of my career has been working in companies, and I retired from Nestle, having worked there for 30 years as the head of Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Oceania a few years ago, and then joined academics in addition to consulting. One of the questions that fascinates me now is understanding better what is the purpose of business and what is the purpose of companies. We have seen a lot of challenges coming in this particular area. There are very recently, last week, a few CEOs who went out and said that shareholder value creation is no longer important. And in this context, I invite you to read the editorial of The Economist from last week, which says, be very careful when you say something like this, because the biggest engine for transformation that we have had, social transformation in the last 150 years, has been capitalism and the shareholder-driven profit motive. Now, there are many ways to understand the purpose of business. You could start with shareholder value. You can talk about the creating shared value model, talked about by Porter and Kramer and Harvard Business Review. I'm working on a refinement of this to say, in fact, the real value and objective of a business is to have sustainable value creation, sustainable over time, value creation for shareholders primarily, and then employees and business partners, and then society. But sustainable has two dimensions. One, to be sustainable over time, you have to make sure that the ecosystem that you operate in remains sustainable and profitable, and you don't take advantage of them. And this ecosystem extends, in fact, to the environment. So sustainable value creation is a very interesting topic that I introduce, and I'm writing a few articles about that. One of the interesting topics that I'm currently working on and trying to write a book about is the different life stages of companies. And my co-author, who retired from P&G, Jim Lafferty, and we've written an article about this, writing a book about it. Basically, it posits that companies go through 4 different phases. The first phase is creation, what we call stage 1. There's a lot of experimentation, small teams, rapid failures, and learning from failures. Stage 2 is once you have an initial prototype or a model or an equation that works with consumers and customers, then how do you scale it up? Here the focus is no more experimentation, but to roll out what you have already developed and do it efficiently as fast as possible. And the speed of scale-ups has actually accelerated with time, with the technological cycles being ever faster these days. Then companies enter stage 3. And stage 3 is where the original ideas have run out of steam or they've been copied and you have a lot of competition coming. And then the whole focus is on value stream optimization, on cost cutting, on transferring jobs to lower cost locations, labor arbitrage, and so on. And finally, when that runs out of steam, companies enter stage 4. And stage 4 is all about trying to create value through M&A. You sell off bits of the business that you think don't make sense, buy new businesses that you think make sense. Each of these 4 stages calls for a different leader to succeed. They call for different cultures to succeed. They call for different competencies from the people who are required to make these stages work. None of these stages is good or bad inherently. They're just stages that companies go through. Can companies who are in stage 4 reinvent themselves and go back to being stage 1? Yes, it has been done. Not often, but it can be done. One of the topics that has fascinated me in my entire career is the whole implication and understanding of leadership and culture of organizations. If you haven't already seen it, I invite you to go to YouTube and check out an 8-minute video entitled "The Smell of the place. It's by the late Professor Shumantra Ghoshal, who was a professor of strategy, founder of the department at London Business School, one of the starting deans, in fact, at the Indian School of Business for just a few months or something. And he talks about how the culture of a place ultimately determines how well strategy is executed. You might have heard this people talk about culture eats strategy for breakfast. Basically what it says is you can have great strategy, but ultimately the culture determines what strategy succeeds and how well strategies are executed. So one of the areas of interest for me, and something I have helped companies to do, is how to transform themselves culturally, how to first read what culture they are at, and how to then go through a journey to transform themselves culturally to a company, a culture that is far more agile, cooperative, and forward-looking from one that is essentially bureaucratic, backward-looking, and protecting the past. I will also talk about this and many other topics in my course on CEO perspectives that I will be offering in January, February of 2020.